Hi, this is Julie Harland, and I'm your math gal. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where you could search for any of my videos organized by topic. We continue with our work on solving percent problems using proportions, and in this video we solve these two problems using proportions. Remember, we can set up a proportion to solve a percent problem using this model, where we put the amount over the base equals the percent over 100. And remember, when I write percent, I just mean the number in front of the percent sign. So here's a problem. 24 is 40% of what? All right, so in this case, what I'm going to put in for the percent is the number in front of the percent sign here. That's an easy one. So percent, we're going to have to be able to put 40 in here, right? And then let's see, the amount and the base. Now the base usually follows the word of. So what follows the word of here? Of what? I don't know. So that's going to be a variable. So I'm going to just use any letter, B, so remember I'm looking for the base. And the other number has to be the amount. So this is what's going to go in for the base. And 24 is going to go in for the amount. So here's the problem again. 24 is 40% of what? And I know that I want to write the amount over the base is equal to the percent over 100. So we just discovered how we're going to do this. If you want, you could say, which number is the amount and what am I going to put in for the base? Sometimes it's good to write that down. Look for the word of to find the base. I always look for the base first, and it says of what, so that tells me that's the thing I do not know. So that means the other number, 24, has to be the amount. So that helps me fill this in. So the amount is 24. That goes in the numerator. The base, I don't know what that's going to be. That's B. The percent, okay, remember that's the number in front of the percent sign. That's why I'm putting it over 100. Okay? If I would have just said P instead of P over 100, then we would have changed it anyway to 40 over 100. So this will be 40 over 100. All right, so now we set up a proportion. So how do we solve this? We can do the cross multiplication. We can multiply those two together. That'll be the same thing as those two multiplied together. So I'm going to do the 40 times b. I always look and see where the variable is, and I'm going to do that on the left side just because a lot of people like to solve equations where the variable is on the left side of the equal. So I do b times 40, which is 40b equals 24 times 100. And now to solve for b, we want to divide both sides by 40. So that we'll figure out what b is equal to. So what we have to do here is simplify this fraction over here. So I've got 100 over 40. First of all, I hope you could see that you've got 100 over 40. You could divide the top and bottom by 10, which will eliminate that 0 and that 0. Does that make sense? And let's see, so it's just a 4. And then I could do 24 divided by 4. See, I've got 24 over 4. So I could divide those. That's going to give you a 1, and that'll give you a 6. So I'm going to get 60. Now, you might have done your counseling completely different. I got B is 60, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So 24 is 40% of what? The answer would be 60. And see if that makes sense. Does it make sense to say 24 is 40% of 60? Okay, let's see if we could sort of just, does that make sense to you? Okay. Well, 40% of 60. Let's see if we could do this in our head. What's 10% of 60? 10% of 60. What is that? That's just 6, right? So I've got 10%. 40% be 4 times as much as that. 6 times 4. So it would be 24. So there's a way, if you just take your common sense, a lot of times you could tell if you're in the ballpark here. All right, here's our next problem. I want to reiterate something proportions are just one way to figure out a problem that has to deal with percents. I would do this problem without using proportions myself, but I'm just showing you how it can always be used. So let's just see how we would do this problem that way. So remember, we want to write the amount over the base, and then whatever the number is for the percent, we're going to put it over 100. So let's see what we do know here. The percent is given. We could see that. This 18, so we know that's going to go up here, 18. All right. So now I have to look, I always look for the base, and I'm going to look for the word of. And I've got of 150. So this must be the base. The base must be 150. So the thing I don't know in this case must be the amount. So I'm going to write A for amount. It doesn't matter what letter you use. You could use X or N. All right, so now using proportions, I could do my cross multiplication. So I'm going to do A times 100 and 18 times 150. So A times 100, I'm going to write that as 100A equals 150 times 18. And then we'll divide both sides by 100. All right, now we have to reduce this. So let's see. I notice I got a 0 here, 150 over 100. Or actually, I'm going to divide both of those by 50. Hopefully you can see that. This is 150 is 50 times 3, and 100 is 50 times 2. So if I cancel, that'll be a 3, and that'll be a 2. And then I've got this 18 over 2, so I can cancel that to get that to be a 9 in the numerator. And I'm going to end up with A equals 27. Now, of course, a calculator will give you the same answer. You could do 150 times 18 over 100. You'll end up getting 27. So the answer to this problem would be 27. Now see if that seems in the ballpark to you. 18% of 150. Well, 10% would be 15, right? So 20% would be 30. And 18 is a little less than that, so that seems like that's right in the ballpark. All right, so I did solve this using a proportion, but remember, you could just say find 18% of 50. Another way of doing that is simply doing 18%, remember, times 150. That's a totally different way of solving this problem. If you want to know the answer here, you would just say, oh, it's 18% of 150. You could either do that as 0.18 times 150 and then do your multiplication, or you could write 18% as 1800ths times 150. Okay, maybe I should write that as 150 over 1. And no matter what, you're going to still get 27. Okay? Not necessarily setting up an equation with a variable. All right, so proportions is just another way of solving any problem that has to do with percents. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where you can view all of my videos, which are organized by topic.